All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed the first part of that. The second part, we have about an hour or so. I'm going to try to close the loop on everything else, right? So we kind of talked about persuasion, set the tone for what that is, and talked a bit about social media. I'm going to try to close the loop on some of the other marketing channels and how you can start to bring some of that in. So, my background is SEO and paid search and Google, running Google ads and social media, email, all that stuff. So I actually enjoy seeing all of that together and not just one thing, kind of one channel. I know it's all interconnected. You can create one piece of content, put it out across all these different channels. So I want to kind of bring all that together for you guys. And we'll have a little bit of time probably at the end for some questions. So we're going to talk about these persuasive marketing strategies. First one being SEO. We're going to look a little bit about figuring out the right keywords and why. Look at competitors and some competitive research tools. We'll look at content strategy, some ideas on creating some persuasive content, and then we're going to spend a decent amount of time on landing page optimization, which a lot of you have probably heard of or tried or done or paid someone to do. But I think that's an important area for driving, sales and conversions. And then we'll look at some of the paid search channels. I actually like this area a lot because, Google Ads can drive immediate leads for you when someone's doing a search, whereas SEO, it might take a little time for you to invest in content development and actually get some rankings. So if you want an immediate impact, paid search is a place to be. And then we'll talk about some email marketing strategies to wrap things up. So before we get too deep into SEO, has anyone heard of this latest Google update called the Helpful Content Update? Maybe one or two people? Yeah, so Google periodically updates their algorithm. Well, they really update it all the time in kind of real time, but they come up with some pretty big updates every 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 years that are kind of core updates. And this happened about 2 months ago. They called it the Google Helpful Content Update. The idea is we've all been creating all this content. Some of us go way overboard and create a page that has tons of stuff on it, and Google's saying, wait a minute, how helpful is this content really for somebody, especially on a mobile device where they have to scroll down? So they're not just looking at the content, they're also looking at how you are organizing it and displaying it. So that's an area where you can kind of do an audit of some of your own sites. I know a lot of universities kind of limit the number of pages you might be able to have, and so you cram a whole bunch of stuff on one page. This right here is your reason to take back to the university and say, we need to have 5 pages instead of 3, or 15 instead of 4, right? So Google actually wants you to break up content and make it more digestible. They also don't want you to put stuff on there that's never happened before, or is irrelevant, or you're just trying to kind of go after certain keywords. There's people doing some spammy stuff that they're kind of trying to stop doing that. So that's a pretty important one. And again, I think the mobile experience is also critical. So let's talk about selecting the right keywords. I have this in the SEO section. It obviously translates to everything else, figuring out what keywords and topics we want to talk about. I can kind of break this up into 4 different topics. We have informative keywords. These are how do I plan, type of event. Does so-and-so allow catering? Event venues in Portland, Oregon. These are early stage funnel keywords. These are people that don't know where they want to hold the event. They don't know what type of space they want. They don't really know too much. Maybe they have one piece of information that they're kind of starting their journey, their customer journey, as they go through and look for information. That's an area where the keywords are massive. Event venues in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of event venues in Pittsburgh. We don't know what size they are. We don't know how much they cost. We don't know if they're on the waterfront or not. We don't know if they're an arena or a university. So ranking for that keyword could be great. You'll get a lot of traffic, but it's like ranking number 1 for cars if you're a car salesman in San Diego selling Toyotas. You're going to get a lot of people that don't live in San Diego that don't want a Toyota go into cars, right? So those are great keywords, but they're also not necessarily the best ones, I think, for you to really focus on. Comparative keywords. These are all the people that are searching for best or private versus public spaces. Venues near, I think near is kind of a qualifier for people. Venues near downtown, near the water, venues with a view. I know for UCSD, that's a big area for them. It's a venue with a view of the beach. That's something they really capitalize on. So the comparative keywords I think are really important, and those are a little bit further down the funnel, right? So people know now where they maybe want to go or the type of venue, and they're starting to compare some of their different options. And again, there's still a lot of search volume for these keywords, but they get a little bit more longer tail. They get 3 or 4 words long instead of 2 or 3. And then you get into the transactional stuff. I see this all the time when I do keyword research. Cheap venues in, who wants to rank for cheap venues in your city, right? But there's a lot of people searching for it. So, cheap is relative to all of us. Cheap is relative to your market. Cheap is relative to, your actual price. We had the question, do you put pricing on your venue pages? Well, are you cheaper than all of your competitors by $1 or $5 a person? You could rank number 1 for cheap if you're the cheapest in the market, but do you want to do that? Is that supportive of your brand? Maybe, maybe not. But that's something just to kind of think about. There are these transactional keywords that low cost, cheap wedding venues. That's a big one. That's obviously one that gets searched a lot. So think about some of those transactional keywords that are important. Again, we have like venue for rent. That's kind of someone ready to go, ready to buy. That's actually a pretty important keyword nationally. And then I think when you have like a 500 person conference center, like that's transactional. You're getting a little bit more. You have the number of people in the space, and you have the space type. So we're getting down to now we need to just find the venue or the venue location. And then the last one here is these reinforcing keywords, which I think are really good. This is kind of that loyalty side of the customer journey, where you have someone searching for your brand name, Notre Dame Conference Center, venue reviews. So do you rank number 1 for that, or does Yelp and Facebook and all these other places, unique venues maybe, right? So if you don't have reviews on your own site, you're not going to rank for those keywords. So that's one that I think a lot of us actually kind of miss. And if we put reviews up, it's just not enough sometimes to carry the weight that you're actually going to be able to have that content rank. And then venues at a Kennesaw State University, for instance. What if it's not the university ranking, it might be some event site that's going to be ranking for that, or if you have a lot of concerts or things like that, sometimes Ticketmaster or SeatGeek's going to outrank you for those. You should own those keywords. Those are your own keywords, your own brand. So you should be aware of those. And then planners using, I see this is actually a growing term. Planners using, the Oregon Conference Center. Planners using Portland State University's Pavilion. I see this more and more. People, I think it's the younger planners, they're searching for people that they trust saying that they use this event space. Kind of going back to some of that, using people that we trust. How do you get in front of the people you trust, that your clients trust? This is where I think you can use some of those keywords. So does anyone have any questions on these 4 areas? I know that's kind of a lot to digest. Cool. All right, so where do you find the right keywords? The biggest, easiest, most trusted place I would say is Google's Keyword Planner. This is part of Google's ad. Google Ads, you have to basically set up a Google Ads campaign, and then you can log in and use their Keyword Planner tool. You can drop in a bunch of seed keywords that you want to use, and it will expand those out to hundreds or thousands of keywords. You can export them all out and kind of go through and say which ones are the ones we care about. You can look at this at a national level. You can look at this at a city level, a DMA, Nielsen DMA region level. You can look at it at a zip code level. So if you want to get really minutia on your area and see exactly how many people are searching for event venues as a broad term, then you can know kind of how big your market is. So a little bit of competitive and market analysis there. Ahrefs, SpyFu, these are some other kind of, in our industry, we just come up with weird names for companies. So Ahrefs is kind of a nod to, some of the code in a link, but it's become a business name. They have really good research tools. SpyFu is one I've been using a lot more to research what my paid search competitors are doing. And you can actually go in there and see what keywords they're bidding on. You can see what ad copy they're running, and then you can export it and load in the keywords into your ad campaign, edit some of their ad copy, and use it for your own. Done, right? I know people that do that. But yeah, it's actually really interesting to see like what verbiage people are using and what kind of sales points they're using in their ad copy, especially if they have a lot of ads that they're running. You can also see what their estimated budget has been based on the search volume of the keywords, and they do some calculations on click-through rate and the cost per click and how much they are getting clicks. And you can see if they're spending $500 a month or $3,000 a month or more than that. So pretty interesting. Moz is another good tool. It's a little expensive compared to the others, but they've got lots of good SEO tools and paid search tools for keywords and rankings. And then SEMrush and keywordtool.ia are other good kind of keyword ranking tools to look at. So anyone using any of these in their marketing suite? A couple? Yeah. Just for the visibility of where your website's ranking and some of your competitors, most of these cost about $100 or $150. So if you have $1,000 a year in budget for market intelligence, these are some good tools to consider. So looking at your competitors, another area that's interesting to look at is Google Search Trends. This is kind of fun to play with. And at the end of every year, they always release, here's like, the most searched for singers and the most searched for like world events and all this stuff. So they actually have a lot of really cool data that they put out. Aside from that, you can actually take any keyword and look at the historical search volume for that keyword going back, I think, up to 7 or 8 years. And so this is actually a graph of event venues and event space search volume nationally going back 5 years. And so you can see event space in the last year or two is actually starting to break out a little bit. And I think the younger generation of planners is actually using event space more than event venues. And people are using event venues more than they are like a banquet hall or a ballroom. So in my world, I try to make connections of like, why is this keyword being searched more and what's happening in the market that's driving that? Younger planners they're not using the same verbiage as we are. They don't know that a ballroom or a banquet hall does a certain thing. They're just looking for an event space. And that's early in the search, that's earlier in their discovery phase. They might then later on find that it's a banquet hall or that it's a conference center or it's a business center at a university or something like that. But they start off with event space and event venues. And I think that's going to continue to grow and change. So when you're talking about your event space and your event venue in social media, using Google Ads, in terms of keyword rankings for content, that's just something to really kind of look at and consider. And obviously there's some regional stuff that happens there and what we call things, but this is kind of one of those national trends that we're starting to see kind of unfold. Moz has a really good tool that will look at, you can dump 50 keywords into their tool and it will actually tell you what type of content is showing up in the top 10 results and how much of it is. So this is actually kind of a frequency graph of a group of 200 keywords that I looked at just kind of for example. So, these are all the different basically percentages of search results that have certain things in them. So these are all opportunities for us to create content to have show up in search results. So images are showing up almost 40% of the time. Of our 200 keywords, 50 of them, let's say, are including some kind of image search result. Maps are showing up just as much. Reviews are showing up even more. There's ads at the top and the bottom on 30% of our keywords that we're looking at. Related questions, this is my favorite one. 60+% of the time, we have related questions showing up. And those are the little kind of blocks of text that say, related questions, and then they'll have usually a full sentence question. You can click it, it drops down, it brings up a search result. For really competitive keywords, you can get into the top page by answering those questions with content on your site. And that's kind of a backdoor way to get into answering, ranking for some of those keywords. Interestingly enough, a lot of those questions are conversion focused. People are asking very specific details about whatever the topic is. So it's an opportunity for you to kind of bring in your persuasion hat and say, we are the authority in this. We're going to answer this question because this is a question about our university. This is a question about our city. This is a question about the events that we tend to host. And we're going to actually bring that into our website and try to rank for those keywords. Here's an example of doing that. So this is a blog post for the South San Francisco Conference Center. This is the search result for largest biotech companies in the Bay Area. They rank number 1. Not only do they rank number 1, but they have what's called a rich snippet, and it takes up the whole screen, right? How awesome is that? They've also got the image that we included on there showing up as well. You don't usually see that with Google search results. It's got a whole list of all the biotech companies, and then it's got a link to their website. If I was in the biotech space and I'm doing some research, maybe there's some people I want to get in front of at a conference, I'm in the industry somehow, and I do a search for this, and then I see the conference center, there's my brand, right? The conference center just got exposed that way. That person may not be in a position to book an event this year, but maybe they know people who are, and they say, hey, check out this conference center. They're obviously in that space. They're obviously branded in that space and aware of that. So this is actually a really cool way for you to kind of have some backdoor content that starts to rank. Here's another one, how to plan a symposium. This actually gets searched like 15,000 times a month nationwide. There's also all the other variations, how to plan, a conference, how to plan a wedding, how to plan, all these different event types, right? So there's an opportunity here for you to sit down and write some content and try to get it to rank and get in front of some of these people. If you have national customers or international customers, this is a good way for you to kind of go for those more broad terms and try to get people exposed to the brand. You can see this article that's ranking number 1 is from 2015, 7 years ago. Google still thinks it's relevant. They're getting 7 years of traffic from this. That's huge. But if you create some content today, someone in this room is going to go home and do this, get a few links pointing to it, build some authority to it. You could overtake them with the right content and getting some authority pointing to it, some other university links pointing to this article, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of these opportunities out there where creating content with the intention of showing up to build your brand, to get exposure, to be the authority on a topic can lead you to getting some more traffic. Does anyone have any questions about how to expand that or do that more? Okay. Pay for them? No, this is all organic. This is just creating content and Google crawls it, and they, you're targeting specific keywords. Obviously, that's your strategy and your plan around what content we're creating, and then just create it on the website, and Google's going to crawl it and see it. And has anyone heard of structured data schema markup? You probably heard that a little bit. So Google likes to crawl content that's structured in a way that they can digest it. So you're actually going to notice here you've got the 1 through 8 list. On this one, it's bulleted points, right? So why are they doing that? Well, in this post, it is bulleted points, and on the other one, it is 1 through 8. And so that's a list. And so in the code, in your WordPress site or your website or university site, it's in the code, it's built in. Google crawls that and sees that. They also see the headlines of content. They crawl that, they see the links, all this stuff is incorporated into making this happen. And the only way they can see that is if you've actually organized your content on your website the right way, which then also goes back to that helpful content update, right? They want us to organize content in a way that's digestible by people and by Google when they crawl the site. So you can see all this is starting to connect, right? And it all makes a big difference in how you can start to play in some of these spaces. At the bottom of every search result is going to have related searches. I did, Portland event venues or Vancouver, Washington, where I'm from, event venues. These are the things that people are also searching for that search for that keyword that I just searched for. So this is an area for you to kind of easily mine out ideas. It also is interesting that my search for, I think it was Vancouver event venues, they're also bringing up birthday party venues. And not only are they bringing that up, they're also bolding it, right? Google thinks that's super relevant to what I search for. They also think baby shower is super relevant to what I search for. They're bringing in, various keywords. They're space rentals, all that kind of stuff. So Google's looking at our searches that we're doing, and they're saying, here's stuff that we think other people are searching for, and they're bringing up search results. So this is an area for you to look at and say, hey, what kind of community of keywords do we want to rank for that is going to help us get more traffic and influence some of the different conversions? And I think this is a really easy way to do that without paying for some of the tools, is to just kind of look at what Google's kind of associating with important keywords for us. Has anyone ever done any heat mapping on their website? A few? Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So Hotjar is one of the websites that you can do that. I think it's like $50 for a month, and you can collect all the data and then cancel. It's a really good tool. Basically, it'll tell you where people are looking and where they're clicking on your website. So if anyone's going through a website redesign, it might be interesting to do a heat map now, see where people are engaging, and then when you do a new website, you can incorporate some of that information into that new website, and then also run it again and see how you're improving your click-through rates, or you're improving your engagement with images or videos. It's an awesome tool. It's very interesting. Not only do you get to see like the heat map pieces, but they'll actually break out like, here's the first quadrant where 50% of the people see stuff, and then here's the next 25%, and then the next 25%. So you can understand that the content you stuff at the bottom of the page isn't actually being seen as much as you think it is. And they'll actually show you that based on people's scrolls of content. It also works for mobile as well. So much smaller screens and a little more information to look at there. So landing page optimization kind of ties into this. This is kind of an example of a landing page with all the different elements. I wanted to kind of talk through this. So, sometimes our web pages are just kind of built in some structure that we're kind of in the university structure. And I think breaking out of that, or being in, your brand, whatever your brand you were given if you're a private venue, breaking out of that a little bit and creating some landing page that's actually going to perform well is sometimes hard to do, but these are the elements that are important for it. So you obviously need a strong headline that's going to get people to engage with you and get some kind of attention. You need a supporting headline. This is kind of something that is a little more persuasive, right? You're kind of proving what you said at top. Then you've got some kind of hero image or some kind of koala, maybe. Something, it's getting your attention, right? I mean, they're doing some stuff here that's interesting, right? So they have an animal on top of something. They've got this yellow thing going on up there. So that's where our attention goes. We're actually seeing here what they want to see. They're kind of moving our eye down this page. So I bet if you look at a heat map, everyone sees the koala first, right? And he's looking right at you. He's not looking down. He's not on a tree hanging, So, I mean, it's very intentional with what's going on here. Then the call to action and some more kind of sales language. And then we talked about social proof, right? Some kind of testimonial, someone's, you can trust this person because they're someone like yourself, giving some kind of a quote. So, this is Jillian Potato, a real person. I don't know if she's real or not. So, and then, this is kind of the next part of this page. You've got some benefits. We all talk about benefits, right? Here's why you should book at our venue. Here's all the features that we have. Here's all the cool stuff that we can do. I think it's a challenge to get all that in a nice, digestible way for people without having a big block of text. That was actually one of our challenges that we had with University of Maine was, what kind of iconography are we going to use on the website to share certain things that we're doing that are available for people. So there's some thought that can go into that. And then you have the features kind of down below this. Benefits and features, we all hear about that, right? That's some of the most important stuff to have. Who saw the headline, the big orange one first, right? So your headline's the first thing that people see. So there's a lot, just like you have 4 seconds in video on social media before people drop off, people scan content. They see the headline, they see the subheadline. Sometimes we don't read the content. we just see some of these headlines, just like Google does. These are the things that are really important for landing pages especially to have. And so your unique selling position needs to come through on the headline. It really has to describe, what somebody's going to get from working with you. It needs to be short and punchy, and of course, it needs to be clear. And I think getting 3 or 4 words that say what you want to say, have it be clear, and still be interesting enough for people to read is a challenge. So coming up with the right headline for your website, coming up with the right headline for a social media post, even Google Ads, the right ad copy you're going to use is a challenge. Domino's does it really well. You get fresh hot pizza delivered to your door in 30 minutes, or it's free. Like, we know it's fresh, it's hot, it's going to be delivered quickly. That's just what I needed when I want to Netflix and pizza. There's a company called Toast. They do a lot of point of sale. You put your credit card in at a restaurant. Those are their technology. They actually they've grown significantly in the last 3 years. And they actually have a really good website. I would recommend you checking it out to kind of see what a really nice, coherent landing page looks like. And they do a good job with their unique selling positions and their benefits. This is some example. This is their benefits up here, and then their unique selling positions here. So, they're doing some good stuff with icons and multicolor icons. A lot of times you just see the flat icons that are just one color, and those come from like an icon set in WordPress or something like that. They're doing it, they've brought some color into their icons, which I think is interesting. They've got some, supporting Trust over here, G2, which is a kind of a software review site, talking about how they're the number one. 24/7 support matters for people. Strong performance obviously matters, but maybe support matters more, right? If you're a restaurant and you're down with your point of sale, that's probably more important than how great of a performing solution it is. And then you have your low-cost delivery, right? So people don't want to pay a lot for it, so they know that, and they're putting that there. So they're kind of telling you all the 4 most important things on their landing page. I mean, I can decide if I want to engage with them just on those 4 things right there. So let's talk about paid search a little bit. These are some of the questions that I get with paid search often. And when we look at things, it's interesting to kind of see if we're actually delivering on them. So, whether or not we are getting the right traffic. If you're running Google ads or social media ads, are we getting the right traffic? That's kind of a loaded question. Are you targeting the right people? Are you getting those people to do an action, right? That's the right traffic. So we need to qualify them with the right type of content and the right ads. Are we converting them once they've become a contact? It's really hard when I'm running Google ads for somebody and I'm driving all these leads to them, but I have no visibility into what happens to those leads after it arrives in someone's email box. That happens. That's your story, right? You're getting all these leads coming into you from unique venues, from your own website and all this stuff, but none of those channels that are driving leads to you knows how fast you're responding, what kind of response you're getting. Are you calling them? Are you emailing them? What's the follow-up look like? All that. So that's the missing connection a lot of times in marketing is we've done all this work to drive all these leads, so then now what's happening next? And that's where marketing and sales really come together. And I think in today's world, marketing and sales are essentially the same thing. They're 2 different functions, but they're the same line item. Marketing drives sales opportunities. And if you're not connected in there, then you're losing out on opportunities. And the last one here is, are we responding to the contacts that convert to a lead? Yes, usually we are responding, but sometimes there's some nurturing that needs to happen, and sometimes our contacts aren't actually converting as quickly as we want them to. So maybe there's some email marketing we can do, some social engagement we can do to help move them along the way. And paid search can also be one of those things. So question I get a lot is, like, let's say you rank number 1 in Google for something, and it's a really important keyword, and now 2 of your competitors are running Google ads above you. They're stealing traffic away from you. So should you run a Google ad? Yeah, you should. There's actually a model of 1 + 1 = 3. someone sees you at the top on a Google ad, and then they see your organic listing. The click-through rate of those two is greater than they are individually. So you might have 10% click-through rate here, 10% click-through rate here, just individually, not both of them showing up. But with them both showing up, your click-through rate might turn into 15% and 15%. And so now you have 30 instead of 20%. And it's an authority thing. Like we scroll down through Google search results, and if we want to click on an ad, maybe we skip it because they're paying for it. We go down to the organic stuff, but maybe we saw that they were also running ads, and so we're more likely to click on it. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's true across all industries. So that can help drive some of your conversions. Qualifying customers in your ad copy. This is kind of a fun one. So how do we qualify people when we're running Google Ads and kind of give us the best opportunity to talk to them? When you're running Google Ads, you want to have negative keywords. This is probably the biggest mistake that people make when they start out with their own Google campaign. They run $500 budget, here's all the keywords we want, and then they spend all their money and they go back and look at the keywords that were actually clicked, and they said, oh, well, wait a minute, someone was looking for classes instead of a venue space. Someone was looking for this, this, and this. I run into this all the time, and you kind of have to sit down and figure out what your negative keywords are, and keywords that you don't want anyone to be searching for when you do a campaign. Your competitor research is also good. So I mentioned SpyFu, seeing what your competitors are bidding on. SpyFu actually has this really cool tool. It'll tell you the most valuable keywords that your competitor is bidding on. And it basically is based on like some model of like cost per click and their click-through rates and what an assumed conversion rate might look like for that keyword. If it's more informational, it's less conversion rate. If it's transactional, it's more of a higher conversion rate. So that's a really cool way to see what your competitors are doing. And of course, you could take the top 10% of what they're doing and run with that, and then expand if you need to. HubSpot and Google conversion tracking integration. Anyone here using HubSpot or some kind of a sales management tool? Couple, okay. So making sure that they're talking is important. If you're not using HubSpot or some kind of a sales tool, I would. Joel was talking yesterday about email marketing and using like MailChimp or some of these tools for better deliverability, better tracking of opens. If you're not using that in your sales funnel, that's one of those like disconnected pieces that I was just talking about, where we don't know what our open rate looks like when we send out a lead or we send out a response to an RFP. We don't know if someone got it. So building out some kind of way to track that is going to give you a lot more information. And it's also going to help you understand whether your messaging is working or not. So we're going to talk about email marketing and the subject line and some of the messaging that you might want to have in an email. Not just email blasts, but responses to proposals. That stuff matters, and whether someone's willing to open it up and see it. And then the last one is landing page testing. We've kind of talked about that, but definitely try some different variations of things in your website with header images and callouts. And different messagings to some of your different persona groups. So Google Ads, kind of continuing a little deeper into this. So we think about Google Ads, and you kind of have a title and a description, and then you can click that. But they've built out so many more integrations on this, things like site links. So you can actually run a Google ad and add 3 different sublinks into it to let people drive deeper down into content, which helps conversions rates significantly. You can add structured snippets like pricing into Google Ads. So again, we're qualifying somebody by showing them our pricing. We're qualifying them by showing them some type of content that's going to help us convert them better and bring in a sale. Call extensions is another one. So Google Ads allows you to do click-to-call only ads, which I think is great. It costs a little bit more on a cost per click basis, but someone doesn't have to go to your website. So you can bid on a keyword and someone being on their phone and they click to call you right away. They don't have to go to the website. So if you're at a venue that doesn't have a great web presence, running click-to-call ads might be a good solution because you just bypass your whole website. and allow people to call you right away. You've obviously got to have someone that's going to answer the phone and be in a place to have a conversation with someone. But if it's you, you put your own phone number on there and do that. You can also limit when your ads show. So it could just be during business times. So you're always available during certain times of hours. And then, I think using CallRail, that's another call tracking tool. That's a good one. You can actually record the calls. So for quality assurance, we're recording this call. CallRail is one of those tools. We actually started using that for unique venues, I think 2 or 3 months ago. We're doing some tests where we're putting the phone number of venues up on our website and allowing planners to do kind of a click to call, and it goes through CallRail and it goes directly to the venue, and so we can actually track whether people are doing that instead of just submitting an RFP. And so that may be something we expand out to everybody over the next year. But that's a pretty cool feature. Affinity groups. So Google Ads allows you to upload lists of people and basically train Google what type of people you want to show your ads to, which is pretty cool. So you can upload a current customer list of basically all the email addresses and names of your current customers or past customers. Google will crawl all that data, look at the people's names, look at the email addresses, and then show ads more to people that are like those people than others, which helps you, again, preserve some budget and make sure you're showing your ads to the right people at the right time. You can also do prospective customer lists too. So there's a tool called Seamless.ai and a few others. I know Corey in the back uses Seamless.ai for unique venues. And I've used it, and it's a great tool for finding prospective customer lists and getting email addresses, phone numbers, and all that. You can load that into Google Ads. You can also load that into Facebook ads and also LinkedIn ads and target those people very specifically, which is pretty cool. The other things you can do with the affinity list are, it's left on this screen, but right over here. Competitor lists also. So you can actually tell Google, I want to target people that visit certain sites. So if I'm in Florida, if I'm in St. Petersburg, and I'm this venue, and I want to target people that are visiting my competitors and comparing me, or people that are visiting the local CVB site to get information about the area, I can load those websites in and show ads specifically to those people. That's pretty targeted, and that's pretty cool. It really helps train Google what your customer is like, and you're going to get a lot more kind of horsepower out of running some of these ads. Tying this back to persuasion and being in the right place at the right time and being an authority on things, we're really kind of getting down to minutia here of how do you squeeze the most out of your advertising budget and do it in a way that's going to have good conversion rates. These are the things that you can do that with Google Ads. So we're going to talk a little bit about email marketing here. I don't want to spend a ton of time on email, but I think it's worth doing a little bit. The most important thing, like the number one thing that I hear that people don't have set up, but they need to have set up, is segmentation. And what that is we maybe have a list of 5,000 people in our email list. How many of those people are current customers? How many of those are past customers? How many of those are people we talked to, but they never booked with us? And how many of those are our most important customers, right? The people that have generated a lot of money for us, that are booked for the next 3 years and have booked for the last 5. All those people have different messaging that you can send to them, different offers. And so for email marketing, segmenting that out is really important. It takes some time to do that, obviously, if you don't have that kind of tagged or something like that in a sales tool or something. But I think it's really important to do that, and it sets yourself up for success with email. You don't have to send out a different email to every person, but you could take the top headline and the top content block and customize it for each group. And if you're doing that once a month or once a quarter, it's really not that much more, but it gets the right messaging to the right people, which is a little bit of what we talked about earlier this morning. Subject lines. I know Joel did I think there were like 9, there were a couple people in Joel's session yesterday about subject lines, but And he had some really good ideas about how to make, subject lines conversion friendly and do more. But here's some of the like real data on subject lines. So the number one up here is 47% of people open an email just because of the subject line. They don't even look at who it's from. That's pretty cool. If I have a good subject line and I'm beating out all the other people that are in someone's email box, I'm going to get opened ahead of, Amazon's email and whoever else. Conversely, 69% of people report spam based on subject line. So if you have someone in the wrong segmentation list, or you're not segmented and you're trying to talk with them using some type of content in your subject line, they might report you as spam. So that's the other side of the coin there, is make sure that you have segmentation in place so that you're and the right email subject line for people. 22% of more people will open an email if the subject line is personalized. So Scott, we have a great venue for you waiting in 2023. Okay, great. You're talking to me, you know who I am, that's personalized. So that actually gets much better open rates and less reported to spam when it's more personalized. You have to be a little careful with that, because if you don't know someone's name and you have a blank space in your database, then it just says, comma, we have a great venue for you. It looks awkward. So you have to do a little customization there, but it's an important one. And then 56% higher open rates with emojis. Anyone use emojis in subject lines? A few? Yeah? Cool. I've worked with some wineries over the years, and putting the little wine glass in a subject line and say, hey, we're having some event, click here, check it out. Huge increase in open rates. So there's some cool ways you can incorporate emojis into, maybe it's a flight, an airline, maybe it's if you're in a sunny city, a little sunshine. We're booking for the summer of 2023, that kind of thing. So you can get real creative with that, and it definitely shows up, and it's even more important on mobile phones, because we all know our screen's small, and if you have Gmail or you're using some other mail platform, you really only have about 30 characters of a subject line that shows up. And if your emoji is right there in the front, it gets all of your attention. So pay attention. If you're not using emojis, pay attention to what happens around Christmas time. Everybody that has your email address starts sending you emails, and I will guarantee you 60 or 80% of them this year will have emojis in there. It might be little dots for black dot for Black Friday. It might be a Santa. There's all kinds of stuff that people, get creative around. So some better call to actions in emails. So there is some data around how many call to actions you should have, or people tend to have, in B2B emails. So about 45%, this is kind of like a national, all data type thing, but 45% of emails usually have one call to action. 20% will have two, and 18% will have three. If you get beyond 3 or 4 or 5, people get a little confused. Kind of going back to what we talked about, if you give them too much information, you confuse them, right? So what do I do in this email? I don't know where you want me to click. Sometimes people jam, a button or two up at the top, and then they'll some text, and then they'll have a button that goes to the same thing down below that. And so those technically are going to help us with conversion, but it doesn't. It just confuses people. They don't know why they should click one or the other. So that's something to think about. And then what are people trying to do with their call to actions in emails? This is something to think about. So it's website visits, it's lead generation. That's the number one thing by far. Direct sales in email can happen if you're an e-commerce company. For you guys, probably not. Someone's not going to go book an event just because they got an email from you. They're going to need to click, check out some stuff on the website, call you, get a quote, and all that stuff. So don't try to sell them to book now. I see that all the time. Book your event now. No, that's not what people want. They want to get more information. They want to find out about the space. They want to explore the space. They want to explore the city. Those can be some good call to actions in an email, not book now. I don't think book now for event venues it's counterintuitive to what we all think. But from what I've seen in the data, it's probably not the best call to action to actually use. You're not there yet, unless you're sending it to people that you've already talked to, they're already exposed to your brand, they know about you. It's in their nurture campaign, right? So a little further along down the funnel. Then you can say, let's actually book. And then some some better results with call to actions. Kind of getting into this a little bit. So, clarity versus cleverness is actually more effective in call to actions on emails, and also on landing pages really too. So we all try to get a little clever sometimes, but at the end of the day, people just want to be clear about what they're seeing. Promoting urgency. This is a tricky one. How do you be promoting urgency when there's really no urgency that exists? We all try to manufacture urgency, I feel like. But, if you are busy and you know your busy season and you know stuff's booking, I mean, an email that goes out says, hey, usually by December, we're booked up for the first quarter of the next year. Get your information now so that you can make a decision of whether you're ready to book with us or not. Sharing just enough information to capture some attention is also a good strategy in email. Obviously, we don't want a huge long block of text in emails, and so giving someone just a little taste of information and allowing them to click into your website for more information to a customized landing page is a really good strategy to kind of continue that conversation. And then using personal pronouns in your call to actions in your actual buttons is interesting. So like, I want to see more, I want to explore, are you ready to come to Ohio? Yes, I am, for an event, that kind of stuff. So those kind of things actually do really well in emails for call to actions. And we don't see them a ton, but the ones that I've seen do exceptionally well, much like 2 or 3 times better than, click here to see or click here to book. And then visual based or like a GIF. Sometimes you see this from like Amazon. They'll have like a little icon or something that's animated in an email. Using some kind of animated GIF or something like that is actually a pretty cool way to get people's attention. It's just interesting to look at, so people tend to click on things a little bit more. And then you have discount and offer based, obviously is another area to look at. That's it. That was a lot. So real quick, any questions, anything you want to dive deeper in on?
I had a question.
Yes.
On a website you had Inquire Now, but that is a little different than Book Now. You like that? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the let's call it aggressiveness of Book Now, Buy Now versus Inquire, Discover, Learn More. Right? It's a little bit not as direct, and I think for people that aren't ready to book, ready to buy now, that actually is more likely to get clicked.
Also, I wanted to ask your opinion. I found a company that did 360-degree views of some of our sites, and it's kind of a virtual tour. I think it's pretty successful, but I wanted to hear what you thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a Matterport. Is that who you used? Yeah. So I mean, I think they do great work. Obviously, they work with venues and real estate agents and spaces that need to be shown off. My brain goes, okay, well, where are people in the conversion funnel that are going to want that information? Let's make sure we have that information on that section of our site or that page. It doesn't need to be on your homepage. It doesn't need to be all over the site. There's a spot for it. So figure out where that is and then use it for that. And then, of course, you can use that in your messaging if you want to drive the right people at the right moment, right, to that type of content.
And Paul's session is going to dig into there's some great statistics about how much higher viewing and click-through and conversion is with that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
Other questions? Anyone else?
Cool.
Wait, back there in the back?
Yes. And while you're walking, a quick note, I have a session later today that's like one of the little educational sessions. I have no slides. If you have a website that you want to look at and dive into some of this stuff a little deeper, we're just going to kind of sit down and look at some examples. So I just wanted to open that up to people. I've talked to a few people in the audience. They may have websites you want to take a look at. But so that's going to be my session later today. It's, again, no slides, just kind of diving into things. Yes.
2 quick questions, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, but we're sitting here talking about spam words to stay away from in a subject line. You kind of alluded to that. And then also if there's a certain, like a magic number of keywords,
yep.
we need to do some updates, I think,
Sure.
on what we have out there. So
Okay.
those were my 2 questions.
Spam words, it kind of depends on the spam algorithm that's catching them. I I think Joel actually talked about like universities have pretty heavy spam filters, and sometimes they'll catch an email and not release it for a certain amount of time. Yes, there are things that are going to get caught up in spam. I've seen. I actually mentioned this example yesterday. If an email starts out hi, colon da 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 da, so it's not personalized. Google actually knows that we use the word hey for people that we know versus hi. Like, think about that. When you write an email to somebody, hey is less informal, and it's a friend. Hi is someone I'm cold emailing. So some of that stuff is starting to work into the spam filters and algorithms. There are a couple websites where you can go check out your sendability score, is what it's called, and it will look at your email address that you're sending from and the IP address that you're sending from. So if you're using your university's email servers, you're probably okay, unless someone's been doing some spamming or some emails have gone out from students that have gotten hacked or something like that, right? Which happens. And so you can look at your sendability score, and it'll actually look at like your website, your domain, and see if you're blacklisted and what your likelihood of being opened is. But again, looking at like a MailChimp data and seeing what your open rate looks like and your click-through rates and your deliverability rates, all that's in there. So you should be able to look at that if you're using any kind of email delivery platform. A quick note on that too, if you're doing some heavy outreach, like sending out, let's say 10,000 emails over 2 or 3 months to prospects, you want to use MailChimp, and you want to use MailChimp's sending servers. You don't want to use your own, particularly if you're not a university, because the university sends out so many emails to students and all that stuff, so your percentage of emails is pretty small. But if you're the ranch complex, then your 10,000 emails are going to be 90% of your emails in that time period. And so Google's going to look at those, or the servers that are filtering out spam and catching them are going to be looking at those a lot more closely. And if your open rate's pretty low, you've got spam words in there, then you're going to start to get flagged over time. I've had that happen. Myself personally, actually. It's a pain in the butt to deal with. Any other questions?
Yes, right here.
Hi. We send out a monthly or quarterly newsletter to certain segments of our clients. Do you advise that we change that subject line every month, or for consistency, keep it the same so our customers know that it's that monthly newsletter?
How's your open rate?
It's decent. It could be better, but
So
test it.
Test it, yeah. Are you using an email platform? MailChimp. So really easy A/B testing. You can literally set up, the way that A/B testing works with email is, let's say you have 10,000 people you're sending to, you can say send to 20% and another 20% with 2 separate headlines, and so that's 40% total, and then wait 12 hours. And it'll collect all the data, and then it'll automatically send out to the next 60%, whatever using the best headline that was used. So you can kind of automate your A/B testing. It's actually not really difficult. I would highly recommend doing that. And I would also say, if you have people that are expecting your email and they know you and they know the brand, using some kind of like recognizable word in every headline would be important, whether it's your name of the company or it's the newsletter name or it's something that people will know, because people set up filters, right? So that if they get this from so-and-so, it goes into this folder. So if you've got some history there, you may want to continue using some of that.